Hello everyone, and welcome to the final installment of my Warhammer Castigator tank, Sisters of Battle. I'm just getting over the flu, so apologies if my voice doesn't sound too good on this video. As you can see from the short video, I've applied the decals predominantly from the kit itself. But for example, the numbers on the sponson sides here, the number 3, they were taken out from the spares drawer. Now, in this video, we're going to be looking at doing some pigment work, some OPR, oil paint rendering, weathering effects, and then we'll have copious amounts of pictures at the end. So let's move on to the pigments. I want to try and apply them on the back, the front, and also the top as well, and also along the tracks. And I have a selection here, which are made up of different light, dark and medium dark pigments that I make my own mixtures from. And here we're going to be using the light and the medium dark. Going to be applied with Tamiya thinner as well as pigment fixer from Ammo, an old brush, and these are the two colors we're going to be using a little bit close up. So let's start with dark and go to light. Use the old pie tin. Quite handy this time of year because of the old mince pies, so plenty available. And what we want to do is we're going to make this into a sludge. Now, the reason I use Tamiya thinner is that once it is dried, you can still mess around with it. You can sort of clean off areas on the model if the pigment's gone where you don't want it to go, that sort of thing. So using the pipette, we've added some of the thinner in, and we're just going to use that old brush and mix it all in until, like I say, we get that sludge-like consistency. Then we're going to be using the old Tamiya stir, and we're going to apply the pigment mixture in the form of splattering. Now, we want to try and do this very carefully because we don't want large amounts of the pigment to go on. So we're gently going across and just keep going backwards and forwards and building up those dark layers. And then as you can see now, I've now switched to the lighter layer, and we're getting a nice consistency and a nice thickness and even spread across the back of the model. Really pleased with how that came out. And then this application was repeated along the underside of the tank and also at the front as well. I didn't want to go too extreme on the underneath because obviously it's not going to be seen. But as you can see, there's a fair bit of splattering, and like I said earlier, once it's dried, just use the Tamiya thinner and that can be easily brushed off. Now with the top, we're using a slightly different process. We're actually adding on the pigments in a dry form, and we are using the brush to move it around and to get it into all of those crevices. And then once you're happy, it's again a matter of using the pipette, and this time using pigment fixer by Ammo. Don't have to apply a great deal because otherwise it will wash away the pigments. So just a small drop at a time and just allow it to seep around the model before applying another amount. And again, anything that you're not happy with afterwards, it's dry, it can be removed with the thinner. Then once that was done, the whole model was covered in matte varnish. And then we can start the OPR, the oil paint rendering. Now you've seen me do this a dozen times. But we'll go through it all again. As you can see, there's a whole multitude of brushes for applicating and for blending. We have the Tamiya stirrer to do all of the spatter marks, 2 lots of thinner, one for the dirty brushes and one then to clean it off. And then we have our tissues, and this is the actual piece of cardboard with all of the oil paints on. Rather than go through each one individually, here are a couple of slides, and you can see the ones that I have actually used on this particular model. Now, first things first, we need to just give it a quick clean over. So using some clear thinner, odorless thinner is obviously the best. and just go around with the brush. Not only does this obviously clean the model before we start the oil work, but also improves the adhesion of the oils. So we go from light to dark. So I'm just mixing up a light dust color using the oils. And then you need to apply this as a very thin wash. Try and be a little bit precise here. Sort of dust areas where you feel that it would gather, possibly where the feet of the crewman would be walking all over the turret, that sort of thing. And then once that's been applied, use your hairdryer and get that completely dry. Now remember, when you use the hairdryer, don't have it on full blast. Have it on medium heat, otherwise you will start to melt plastic. Now what we're doing here is just adding some speckling effects with the stirrer and a wash of that light colour. As you can see, that's come out really well. Now with it dry, what we're going to do is use a streaking brush. This isn't wet as far as the thinner goes, but it is moist. And this way you can create some lovely streaking effects. Obviously you don't want to go too heavy because you don't want to take off all of that layer that you've done. Once that's done, we're going to be adding a precision layer of dust now. I've gone for a slightly grayer look now to mix in with the black base colour. And we apply it in a slightly more thicker consistency than the wash that we did earlier. And then using a larger blending brush, we can blend it all out. Then again, it's out with the hairdryer. And as you can see, we're now starting to build up some of those layers of colour and dust. Next, I want to add a little bit of the base colour back in, so a mixture of Pines Grey as well as Lamp Black. Mix that up, and just in particular areas, you can actually improve the darkness of the actual base coat. Most of the time, I go around edges, like a dry brush, that sort of thing, and also just sort of use your imagination where you feel it should go best. So with the lamp black and the Pines Grey done, we now move on to some dirt effects. Here we're working some of the dust and the rust effects around the actual grille to give that nice rusty effect. Again, a precision application and then blend it in. And now I've added a touch of orange into the sienna, and that just is applied around the catches and the hinges to give that more of a rusty look. I was really pleased how, even though small, nice bit of detail, it did come out well. What I also want to do is just add a bit of layering to the red skull. So using a mixture of the reds and some of the dirt colours, we can just again apply it to the area and then blend that out. And now we're actually going to do some quite heavy dirt tones, um, just to accentuate the shadow areas, do a bit more heavier streaking. So you can use stippling effects as well as the streaking motion as well. And this creates lovely effect all over the turret. And at all times, keep remembering to do your speckling. So here we're just doing some burnt umber speckling all over. The key to this type of weathering process is layering. You need to get as many layers in as possible to build the effect of time, and making sure that you don't pull off each layer. You must do your hair drying and dry every layer in between. Just adding on some brown effects now to the leather look hatches. Again, blending out as I go. And again, using the hairdryer. And I was really pleased with the final look. Nice and dirty and dusty. Gives you that really nice, worn, well-used look. On the side here, try to accentuate the scratches as well, using some more rust tones. The sculptures were given sepia washes as well to bring out the fine detail. And a lot of the metallic colours were given washes of burnt umber to give that nice antique look. So all in all, I was really pleased with how that all turned out. And then, as you can see here, this is the comparison between the weathered effect and the non-weathered effect, and it is quite the difference. So you can see what the benefit is. Here we have some of the stills of the turret with the different barrels, with the double barrel and the single barrel, and also the fighter on top with his laser gun. And the same principles were used on the figures and the barrels as well. So with the turret done, it was a matter of turning my attention to the main body itself, and it really was just a matter of doing the same principles. I also added in some rubble, some larger stones, some leaves, just to give that more worn out look. As you can see, the bazooka is still magnetized, still working well. And I'll just go around, show you all the effects of using the OPR weathering. The side sponson's fully working as well. All the weathering done and the streaking done there. We have more rust turns and dirt effects. As far as the skulls go at the front, I swapped out the thread and putting it on a chain instead. I thought that looked a bit better. Really pleased with how the debris and the pigment work came out on this particular build. As you can see, the underside looking ideal. Lots of streaking and tonal work. And again, we improved on that initial pigment work on the back using the oils as well. So there we have the base. Really pleased with how that turned out. And just to show you the effect of the magnetization, still working even though everything's been painted. You can still swap in the barrels. Again, the single barrel doesn't hold its weight, but the double barrel does. But again, not a major issue. And if we put the turret in, you'll also see that it is moves fully. I've added some stowage on the back just to add a little bit of an extra dimension to the build. And they all came out the spares box. And here we have the driver. Again, I've not glued him in because, again, I'm not a war gamer, but there may be a time where for points issues or you know, for scoring, you may not need to have him in there. So again, he can be either added or taken away. Yeah, I've had an absolute joy doing this particular build. It's been a lot of fun, a lot of colour. I allowed my imagination to go wild on this, and that's the joy of doing the Warhammer tanks. So really pleased with how that turned out. So what I'll do, I'll leave you the video so you can see it in more detail. And then after the video, there are copious amounts of close-up photos so that you can see in more detail the effects of the OPR weathering. So thanks for sticking with me. My throat's pretty hoarse now, but I'd just like to say a massive thank you to all of my subscribers, old and new. I really do appreciate your continued support, and I hope you've enjoyed watching this build as much as I have actually doing the build. So in the meantime, everyone, keep modeling.